All right, so what happens if you're away for work for a couple of nights, or maybe just working the night shift, and your wife and kids are at home when a real life intruder successfully breaks into your house and confronts your family? Your wife definitely needs to take action at that stage. It is not the time to be frozen in panic. So if you haven't prepared for this by that stage, it's too late. Okay, so today you and I are going to put in a few simple things in place to prevent your family from becoming victims. Simple things like a safe room. Okay, so your family deserves protection. You are their hero. You're their best shot. Okay, let's get into it. Hey, if we haven't met before, my name is Jake. I'm a dad just like you, and I'm also a home security coach. So I help a certain type of dad to use military-grade strategy to transform their home security so that the family can just relax and get back to enjoying being at home together. It's a pretty cool thing. One of the ways I do that is through an experience called the 80/20 HomeSec Bootcamp. Okay, you could spend the next 18 months watching every single video on YouTube, from home security cameras, alarms, sensors, doors, screens, you name it, dogs, fences, what have you. Or you could spend just a few hours where we shortcut the whole thing and give you essentially what is a cheat sheet for your entire home security, from the juiciest security camera alarm system technology down to super full strength military strategy that you can apply in a layered way so that you get defense in depth across your whole property. And we just shortcut the whole process for you. So if you need to make a rapid change and get a serious quick breakthrough with your home security, we're about that. Okay, I'll give you some more information at the end if you hang out, and hopefully get to see you on there. Okay, now this topic is an important one. Okay, you and I have essentially a sovereign duty, a sacred duty to care for our families, and starting with our wives. Okay, being able to keep them safe when we're there is one thing. Being able to keep them safe when we're not there requires a level of planning that I think in most cases we haven't gone to, but we're going to bust through that right now. Okay, there's 3 areas of this that I want to go through with you right now so that you can actually put some things into practice literally today. All right, there are a couple of things that would involve spending money. There are a couple of things that don't, that you can do right now. Okay, a lot of it will just come down to planning ahead, and we do that right now. We have the advantage of time. All right, thing number 1 does get down to gear. Okay, there's just some stuff that, some things, some objects, some items that will be your advantage to be able to put in place now while you can, before anything ever happens. And by the way, I don't want to come at this from a position of fear. It's sort of easy to do that, but we're not trying to enable something like this to happen by assigning belief to it through fear. What we want to do is come at it from a standpoint of love for our family and stewardship, where we go, I love my family, I care for my family, I want them to have peace and confidence when I'm at home, but also when I'm not at home. I want them to know that I still love them and care about them, so much so that I've gone to put some things in place just so they'd be extra safe when I'm not there. Okay, that's where we're coming from. So please, if you get any fear around this, just jettison that. Okay, we don't want that. So what is on your wife's nightstand matters. Okay, I think there's a pretty good bet that there's a phone, a mobile phone, a cell phone, whatever you want to call it, is probably on her nightstand, because let's face it, it's modern life. Most of us have got a phone there. Not all of us do. I may or may not. Mine typically stays in another room, but your wife, for obvious reasons, should probably have her phone at the bedside if you're not there overnight. I think if that's not the current situation, see if it's possible to come up with an arrangement where she's comfortable having that there. Some people are concerned about that for health reasons and not wanting to have that device sitting right next to their head all night long, just emitting electromagnetic radiation. I think that's completely legit. Maybe you could look at putting it in airplane mode or whatever have you, to be able to address that problem. But it'd probably be worth it, just for the sense that if something happens during the day or at night, if you're not there, if it happens to be at night when she's in bed, bang, she can call you, she can call emergency services, whatever it is. So phone, pretty obvious. Okay. Thing number 2 is probably less obvious, and this is not one that I came up with. This is was given to me by a seasoned police officer / army officer, put it that way. He recommends for people to keep an air horn, and he actually went to the extent that he and his neighbors had actually gotten about a dozen of these air horns. So this small sort of, can't remember the volume, but it's literally just the hands, like it's something that could fit in the palm of your hand. It's not a big, huge thing, but it's like a little sports air horn. They got about a dozen of these things in a box. Like they just ordered them off of Amazon. They went around to their neighbors and they gave one to every neighbor. And they said, hey, we want to look after each other. If you hear this air horn go off in the middle of the night, that means someone needs help. So please respond. Please get over there and help. It's an alarm at that stage. And these are cheap to get. You can get a dozen of these. I think I've seen them, or smaller packs, on Amazon and sites like that for just a few bucks. It's such a simple thing. Not only can you raise the alarm with that, but you can almost use it defensively, because it's not the sort of weapon that could be taken out of your hands or your wife's hands and used on them like some kind of edged weapon or something like that. But if you fire this like at someone within reasonable proximity to them, they're not going to enjoy that. They're going to want to leave. Not to mention it's waking everyone up if this is something that's happening at night. It's extremely loud, extremely loud. So for the bang for buck, the value that you get out of that is pretty serious. So an air horn, if you're going to order one, why not order a few of them and hook up your neighbors as well? That's a pretty cool idea. On a similar note, something else that you could have access to, depending on what your situation is with your cars. A lot of us have got a spare key fob for the car, especially if it's a modern car. If it happens to be a key fob that has that little red button on there, like basically a panic button, so that if you push that button, the car alarm goes off, that would be really handy to have in the bedside as well. So if you have got that secondary key that's kind of like the spare key, the backup, maybe you could look at just keep the primary key wherever you keep it, but then the secondary backup one, especially if it's got panic button on it, why not keep that with a live working battery in it in the nightstand at your bedside table there? So you've got the air horn, but you've also got the you can set off the car alarm remotely from the bedside. That would be pretty cool too, because you're just trying to create as much noise and attention as you can as quickly as possible. So if someone's inside the home that's not supposed to be there, they're going to probably want to get out of there as soon as they can. So far you've got the phone, you got the air horn, you got the key fob. All these are going to help you in getting attention and getting help really quickly. Another thing which I think is worth doing is to get a hefty torch or flashlight. I haven't seen one of these for a while, but when I was younger in the US, we used to have these Maglite flashlights that are these beefy, like aluminum flashlights that they're thick, they're long. I haven't seen them, so I don't know if they're still around, but anything sort of approaching that feels like a big, hefty, just big ass torch that you've got, that you could shine that thing directly in someone's face and they'd be essentially blinded. These days, you've got all these LED flashlights and things like that that are insanely bright. So you could probably do the same thing with something that's very, very small. But there's just something satisfying about having something hefty in your hand. So why not find something like that on Amazon or some other site? If you can get that old classic Maglite, who knows? Get it, put it in your wife's nightstand. She will have something a little bit reassuring there. And then the last thing is, I've got to put a big asterisk on here. I'm in Australia. Some of you guys watching this, you're in the US. Things are different. Things are different with regards to the legality of firearms and the ability to use them for self-defense. It's not a topic that I'm going to pretend to have any level of knowledge or expertise in. If I lived in the US, things would be different. But if you have the ability to be armed at home, why would you not? It just makes so much sense. If your locality, your state, territory, whatever, if you're in Australia, if you're legally allowed to use a firearm to protect yourself and your family, if your wife can have that level of protection at home, I think that is pretty much as good as it gets, because something like that gives her a level of force that essentially equalizes the playing field with virtually anyone that would come into her home to present the threat to her and the kids. She'll be able to level that, especially if she's trained on how to use that thing. That is, yeah, I can't really think of a better way to allow your wife to be able to protect herself. So if you're in the US and you have the ability to do that, you should look into it. I'll leave it at that. So in terms of gear, I do need to address the tech, okay? So we've addressed what's in the nightstand. I want to also address a perimeter layer of sensors and technology, because think of it this way. I worked with a family that had several intruders show up at the gate on the fence. Okay, we're talking at the perimeter of their property. On the gate, this family happened to have a Ring camera, and that Ring camera picked up these offenders, we'll call them for lack of a better word, picked them up when they pulled up in the car and walked up to the gate. At that point, they were on camera. That sent a notification to the family, who was able to respond as soon as they saw these guys at the perimeter. So they literally had the ability and time, which was precious. It was, I think, under a minute, but they had time to respond to that threat immediately when they even approached the perimeter. If that perimeter sensor, that notification, was not in place, it would have been at the point, they would have discovered the threat at the point where their front door is already being kicked in, and their reaction and response time would have been dramatically cut down. It's not the only family that I've seen where having that response time, or that detection of the threat happen at the perimeter instead of at the house, the door, or the window, could make a huge difference, and has made a huge difference. So I would like to recommend, if you can, depending on what the layout of your house is, depending on what tech you have available, if you have a bit of a buffer zone where, between your front door and whatever the layout is, if it's the street, sidewalk, footpath out there, if you can put some detection in place out there, even if it's just maybe a sensor light or something to flick on so that there's a chance that your family or your wife would be able to be notified if someone is coming onto the property, that would give her precious time to be able to respond, especially if you have put a plan in place like we're doing now, so that she knows what to do in that event. I said repeat it again, but that's precious time right there. If you can create that, I think you should. And there's obviously a lot of different ways you can do that through cameras and different sensors and things like that, depending on what the layout of your property and your house is. That's something you should definitely look at. Maybe a simple way that you could do this, if you do have a gate, even as simple as going to Bunnings or whatever your local hardware store is and picking up a contact sensor, which is literally just two magnets that, when they're separated, and it's a battery operated device, you can get far more sophisticated versions of this. But even if you had a battery operated independent that wasn't networked to anything else, that would just create a little tone or an alert sound or something like that if someone were to pass through a gate, even something as simple as that would provide an opportunity for a threat to be identified, or at least for the presence of someone to be identified there. So get creative with this. There's a lot of tech available. Jump on Amazon, jump on YouTube, but to create some kind of detection at the perimeter would be awesome. Certainly, you want to create a point of detection at doors. Windows is kind of another layer entirely, but most of us have got probably only a handful of doors: front door, back door, laundry door, what have you, in your particular house. If your house is larger, you've got more doors involved. Having some, again, kind of like a contact sensor that you could activate at nighttime, or if it's an entire system that you can activate at nighttime or while you're away or at whatever time of the day you choose, being able to detect someone coming in through a door, particularly if they're not supposed to be coming in through that door, if the door is locked, that again just gives that secondary line of detection that someone's come into the house, a door has been opened, a window's been opened, whatever it is that you can put in place to create that detection there. Again, that is just giving your wife an opportunity to react in advance before someone gets actually to her and the kids. Okay, that's what we want to create. There's a lot more to these layers, but I'll just say, in terms of the tech that's involved, you can have tech at the perimeter, you can have tech on the house that's going to give her an opportunity to respond early. And that might be all she needs to keep her and your kids safe. So go ahead and create that if you can. So that's pretty much what I want to discuss from gear, those points of detection, and then what you've equipped her with on the nightstand to be able to look after herself and the kids effectively. So moving on from gear, I also want to talk about planning a little bit. Okay. Your wife will have a job to do when it is time for action, and the kids will have a job too when it's time for action. This is something that you can and you should talk about beforehand. Give your wife the plan, give the kids the plan, talk through it with them, and you can even drill this so that it's not the first time. If they ever do need to do it in real life, it wouldn't be the very first time they had ever actually run through the plan together. Um, there are different approaches to this, and I'm not going to say that I'm an expert in these sort of situations. I've never been in one, and I hope that I never am. But other experts in the field have identified that a really sensible approach to when you're facing an active threat like that is the run, hide, fight methodology. So, of course, you don't want to just run downstairs and just confront someone that's attempting to break into your house. You want to run, hide, and fight. So if you have the ability to create a whole bunch of space to get away from the person or people that are trying to get into your house, you should do that. If you can't create that space and you've got to hide so that they don't find, or so that they don't find your wife and the kids, that would be the second best thing. And then the very last option is obviously to fight. We don't want our family to ever have to get into a situation where they're having to physically defend themselves against an attacker or attackers. That is worst case scenario. So if we can plan ahead and give them the ability to create that space there, or the ability to be able to hide themselves so that they don't have to fight, that's exactly what we want to do in advance. Okay. So it's run, hide, fight. All right. If they can run, or if they can hide, or I suppose if they're fighting, but it's going to be a lot easier to do in the first two options if they're running or hiding, is to raise the alarm. Obviously, you need to get help on the way ASAP. If you're not there, they're going to have to rely on neighbors. They're going to have to rely on police to be able to get to the scene as quickly as possible. Obviously, calling on the phone if it's possible. And I think part of the plan should be to get the kids to safety. If it's during the day or if it's at night, and these are both things you could drill for. And I'll get to this in a second, but you want to have a secure location inside your house that they can basically secure themselves in and shelter, either to be able to hide or to completely secure themselves, or essentially barricade themselves in that room, so that if the intruders are in the house looking for people, either they're not going to find them, or they're not going to be able to reach them, or both, which would be ideal. And this gets into the safe rooms, which we'll come to in a second. But once your wife has secured the kids in a space that's safe, obviously to get help on the way, do that through the phone, do that through using that car alarm, the key fob that we talked about before, using the air horn. Maybe if you can remotely activate lights and turn lights on, that's great. She just wants to avoid putting herself and the kids in a situation where the intruder has got physical access to them. Don't go exploring through the house to find out what's going on. She should secure herself and the kids. That's basically what it comes down to. This is something that you're going to have to work and put in place ahead of time. And this is where we're going to get into the safe room topic. Okay. This is something that, obviously, if you have a lot more funds at your disposal, you can create a real legitimate, robust, secure, safe room that is very well laid out, and even one that is near impossible to actually find, depending on what money you've got to work with. I've been in homes where people have had essentially hidden rooms like this, that would be almost ideal, because if someone's hunting through the house looking for people that are there, if they're running straight past an entry to a room that doesn't even appear to be an entry by any normal standards, it's a pretty safe place for your family to be. It does take some resources to be able to implement something like this in most homes, but maybe it's achievable for you. This is something that I know, at least in the US, there are companies that specialize in creating spaces like this in homes, which is a high budget sort of a task, right? Most guys like you and me will not have access to the sort of resources to be able to put something like that in place. So we can still do this on a budget. And there's a couple of things that you need to keep in mind when you're trying to plan something like this. When you're creating a safe room, probably the main thing that you can do is focus on obviously the door security. If the door is a quality, solid core door, and it's been put together using some pretty robust hardware, there's a great chance that that door is going to do a much, much, much better job of resisting brute force. Most internal doors, like your bedroom door, imagine your bedroom door right now. If you had to knock on that door, it's probably hollow. This is a pretty typical internal door. It's going to offer next to no resistance, and the door may or may not even have a lock on it. If it does, it probably doesn't have a deadbolt on it. These are not fittings and hardware that you'd typically find on most bedroom doors. But if you're willing to go to the hardware store and pick up a replacement door that's solid core door, which would be probably the equivalent door that you'd use for external. If you were to choose a replacement one, it doesn't have to obviously look like an external door. You could get a solid one that you would hardly be able to tell the difference. And then also get matching hardware for that door that it has a deadlock, that has a lock or a key lock on there, and then maybe even some reinforced striker plate and face plate, and the hardware where the hinges are that attach into the door frame. You can get reinforced hinges that have got additional screws, things like that. You're just looking for really robust hardware that you can put. Say, if you had to go look at that door in your bedroom right now, it's probably only going to have a couple of screws, like maybe 3 or maybe 4 screws in the hinges that go into the door frame and go into the spine of the door. You're going to want to look for hardware that has more points of connection, because you're just looking for hardware that's going to create the strongest possible connection between the door and the door frame. On that note, there's something that you can do probably literally right now. If you go to your garage, rustle around your toolbox, and find some wood screws that are probably like 3 inches deep, I want you to go and replace the screws that go into the door frame through the hinges, but then more importantly on the handle side of the door, where you've got the striker plate on the door frame. Typically that's got a couple of screws there. If you can upgrade that, please upgrade that to a larger metal reinforced striker plate, and then use those 3-inch screws to fasten that into that door frame. So what this is doing is it's creating a much, much stronger connection between the hardware and the door frame, so that if somebody tries to brute force that door open, they're going to struggle a lot more. That door is going to put up a lot more fight, because there's just a lot more hardware connecting the door into the door frame. This is not rocket science, but you get where I'm going with this. Upgrading the door itself and then upgrading the hardware can go a long way into keeping your wife and your kids safe in that room and keeping the bad guys on the correct side of that doorway. Okay, so door upgrades are massive. Another item which would be worth looking into would be a barricade or a door jamb. Okay, you've all seen in the movies where someone's taken a chair, shoved it up under the door handle on the inside of the door. There's I suppose you could do that too, but there are actually door barricades, which you could search on Amazon, that kind of looks like that. It's a cylindrical, think of it kind of like the club like you used to have on your car steering wheel. It's a little bit like that, but it goes up onto the door handle on one end of it, and the other end actually jams down onto the floor, and it just creates like a physical barricade to sort of like prop that door in the closed position. So if they're going to try to kick through there, not only going to have to fight against all the hardware that you've reinforced in there, but they're going to have to fight against this barricade there as well. Even if you couldn't do all the door reinforcement, having that barricade there would be a massive, massive plus to stop someone coming through that doorway. And then also when you're selecting the actual safe room, I think it's worth thinking about too, windows and access. It really comes down to the layout of the house. But if the bedroom that we're thinking about using for this safe room, or it doesn't have to be a bedroom, could be a walk-in closet, could be a number of different rooms. But if that room has window access, or particularly if it's ground floor, you want to think about the pluses and minuses of having a a window access into that safe room, maybe with regards to preventing people from coming in, but maybe also from allowing your family egress to be able to escape out of that the back way, to put it that way. And if that's on second floor, do they have access to safely get down? Would they need something like a rope ladder or something like that in that safe room so that they could escape out that back window if they needed to? So there's more, obviously, that goes into the selection of how you'd pick a room for a safe room, how you'd reinforce it. There's even more about, reinforcing and strengthening the walls. But just from a really, really basic level, if you're able to do a great job on door security and then thinking through, okay, once your family's inside, what then? That's going to go a long way towards giving them the peace of mind that even if you're not home, they've at least got somewhere that they can go inside the house that they can be safe. Okay, so that's for the safe room. So at this stage, we've talked about the gear that your wife can have available on the nightstand. We talked about the tech stack, if you were, that you can install at the perimeter and on the house that's going to give her the early warning to know, okay, someone's actually trying to come onto the property. Someone's trying to come inside the house, whether it's during the day, whether it's at night. We've also talked about the planning that you're able to put in place, run, hide, fight, that whole thing, being able to raise the alarm. And then moving on to the safe room, how you put that together, reinforcing the door. One other note on this, and I've seen this as well, consider her car may be an effective safe room, depending on the situation. If she has, and maybe if there's not a safe room available, depending on where the person's coming from that's trying to get into the house, depending on if she and the kids have access to get out to the car, it could be that the car functions as a pretty good safe room and it happens to have wheels on it. So it could be the case that if she and the kids can get into the car and get the heck out of there while blasting on the horn the whole time, that might make the difference. So this is another thing that, just depending on the layout of your home, depending on what you've got access to, you might consider a plan A of egress. You might consider a plan B of egress. It could be, for example, if she knows that the garage is right there, the kids are right there, most of the houses over this way or down there or up there, whatever it is, and she can get straight out to the car and fly out of there and create a whole bunch of distance between her and someone that's trying to get into the house before they even reach her or the kids. Maybe that's your plan A. Maybe that's her plan A. If that's not viable, then maybe that's a plan B, where a plan A could be, okay, let's fall back into the safe room and get secure there. And if for some reason, if we can't get to the safe room, then we'll try to get out to the car and we'll just get out of Dodge. So depending on the situation, the layout, that's a pretty good option as well. I think you've got what you need here to get a really, really good start on giving your wife and your kids the gift of, when you're not there, being prepared for things going a little bit sideways. And I think it's something that if you talk about, it might kind of take away the terror of having to be faced with that. You don't want your family to be faced with that, obviously, ever, but you also don't want that, if they do find themselves in that situation, you don't want it to be with zero preparation. You don't want it to be the first time it's ever even crossed their consciousness that this could happen. It's like a lot of things. I think having, like, planning for, fire safety at home and what do we do if we have a fire in the house. It's a similar sort of a thing. It's just a different application of it. But I've talked about this before, but you have the advantage of time right now where you can prepare for this sort of thing. I think probably for the vast, vast majority of families, this is never a scenario that they will ever find themselves in. But yeah, having the ability to prepare for that ahead of time is that is probably the biggest advantage that you've got right now. So if this is fresh in your mind and you have the motivation right now, you have just received the information that you need to be able to get started on this, just do it. Just do it. I don't think that you'll regret it. And I think if you take the time to explain this to your wife, what you're doing, I think she'll sense that care factor coming from you, and she's probably going to respect you a little bit more for being her protector and the kid's protector. Okay. I hope you found this helpful. There's a lot more to home security. This is just one element, obviously, but there's a lot of overlap between what we just talked about here and just doing some overall comprehensive security planning. Like I talked about earlier, for a lot of dads, I think it is really well worth jumping in and joining up with the 80/20 HomeSec Bootcamp that I run. Okay, this is an opportunity for you to shortcut the entire process. All the information is out there online. It's on YouTube. It's not rocket science. You can do that all yourself. If you want to short circuit that and get a really quick, rapid transformation, particularly if you and your family have faced some kind of security incident recently at home and you guys are really rattled, reach out to me. Okay, I've worked with families that have been through that. It sucks, but you can get a really quick transformation for your family that will allow you to start to feel a sense of peace at home again. Okay, and again, if that has not happened, you've got time now to be able to put some things in place. It's worth it. Okay, so love your family well. There's a link below it you can click to find out more about the 80/20 HomeSec Bootcamp and learn about the 20% of home security that's going to provide 80% of the effectiveness for your family. Learn about the 20% of home security that's going to waste your money, waste your time. There's a lot to talk about, but we can do that in a matter of hours and short circuit the whole process for you. Anyway, I'm going to let you run with this information. If you have questions about it, hit me up, Jake at homesecurity.coach. Get over to www.homesecurity.coach. Jump on the exclusive email list there. There's a ton of information I've put in there for dads just like you to be able to rapidly transform home security in a short period of time. Okay, that's enough for me. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you on the next one. God bless.